Alrighty, here we are again for another exciting explanation of a reimbursement method by yours truly. Today we're going to learn about a method called the per diem. Now, in Latin, the term per diem actually means per day. So, needless to say, or maybe it does need to be said, that this method is going to pay for every day that a patient is hospitalized. Again, we are assuming that the insurance company has made a contract with the hospital to pay under these circumstances. So, today we will learn how to calculate the per diem. We're going to bring into play a couple of terms that are a little different for this method, but like I told you in the first video, the formula that we're going to use, and I've got it written down again, let me figure out how to do this on this video. This total charges minus contractual adjustment equals allowable, minus deductible equals the subtotal, minus coinsurance equals estimated insurance payment. We're still going to be using that formula. Again, we're just using a different method of calculating the allowable. Now, again, because it is a per diem, the reimbursement is actually going to be calculated based on the number of days the patient is admitted. Now, we need to consider that the number of days of admission is going to have to be calculated. Okay, I'm not going to give you this information point blank, but you will have the tools that you need in order to calculate the number of days that the patient was actually admitted. Okay, let's say, for example, that the patient was admitted on January 1st of 2014. Okay, let's say they discharged or they were sent to the house on January the 5th. All right, when calculating the number of days, and I hope you jotted that down, again, 1/1/2014 to 1/5/2014. When we're calculating the number of days that a patient was actually in the hospital, we calculate it by saying we're going to count the admit date, but we're going to not count the discharge date. So if they went in on the 1st, and y'all have to excuse me, I break my hands out for this because I have to count with my fingers. Let's say they came in on the 1st but discharged on the 5th. When we're calculating that, we're going to count the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, but we're not going to count the 5th, okay? So altogether we have 4 days of admission. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. They went home on the 5th. So we don't count that day when we're calculating our numbers of days for a per diem. The reason for this is pretty simple. Okay, let's say that you come in at 11 o'clock on the night of the 1st. The way we count days is by the number of midnights. Okay, so if we came in on the 1st at midnight, we were there 1 midnight, we were there the 2nd at midnight, the 3rd at midnight, and the 4th at midnight. Okay, are you following me? But because we left on the 5th, that means we didn't get to the midnight point. So on the census of the hospital, you would not be there on the 5th. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a total of 4 days of admission. Okay, so that's very important. That's a first step in actually calculating the number of days that we're going to use in our per diem formula. Another thing to consider is a concept known as the base payment rate. This base payment rate is going to be part of your contract language in your problem. What this is, it's a flat rate that will be used, that the hospital will actually get reimbursed this flat rate for every day the patient is admitted. So let's say that we have that patient that was there for 4 days. And let's say our base payment rate was $1,000 per day. The allowable for that would be the base payment rate of $1,000 times the number of days they were actually in the hospital. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 1,000 would be $4,000. Now, it needs to be said here that total charges is important here, okay, because it's going to allow us to calculate the contractual adjustment. However, it doesn't matter if you had $1 million worth of charges, okay? Doesn't matter how many charges you had, because in that case, in the example we just did, they're only going to get paid $4,000 regardless of how many charges you had. So if it was a $10,000 bill and they had $4,000 worth of allowable, the contractual adjustment would actually be $6,000, okay? Because all they're going to pay is that flat rate per day. Now, like I did with the percentage discount method, this is an inpatient form of reimbursement. Again, it is inpatient because we are talking about paying per day that they're admitted. You don't have admission days in outpatient. So this is an inpatient form of reimbursement, and it is also considered an episode of care. Again, it's an episode of care because you've got a flat rate for every day that they're in the hospital. So this is an episode of care reimbursement, and the episode that we're dealing with in this case is 1 day. Okay, we have 1 day that we're getting paid for at a time. Okay, so let's look at this from the standpoint of a problem. And again, I have attached this problem along with my scratch paper onto Blackboard for you to see. Bear with me just a moment. Let me get my sample problem pulled up so I can read to you while we're going through it. Let's say that the County Medical Center has a contract with Aetna Insurance, okay? That's what we're talking about. And Aetna says that they will pay inpatient services at a per diem of $1,600. Now that $1,600, again, is going to be your base payment rate. You'll see me abbreviate that as BPR. Alright, Sue, bless her heart, she's in the hospital again. Sue has Aetna Insurance, and she has been admitted to Bradley County Medical Center. Oh, hold on. Technical difficulties on my end, trying to get this problem where I can read it. Okay. Now, let's say that Sue goes to Bradley County Medical Center because she needs to have her appendix taken out, okay? Let's say she was admitted on October 2nd, and she discharged on October the 7th. Okay, so we're in from the 2nd to the 7th. 7th. Okay, 2nd to the 7th. Yeah, I'm trying to get in front of this webcam. This is insane, y'all. Okay, so let's start first by pulling out our formula, okay, our formula page. The first thing we need to consider is total charges. The problem tells us that Sue has total charges of $8,473.80. Okay, $8,473.80 was her total charges. So again, I'm taking my formula page and I'm plugging that number in. You see that? Again, I do recommend that you write your formula out every time so you have formula, math. And again, it helps you label if you have them written side by side. I do this to this day, and I've been doing this for 187 years, and I still tend to work them out this way just so I don't confuse myself. Alrighty, now, according to the contract language, we are paying, or we are being paid on a per diem. And remember, it's base payment rate times number of days. Well, our contract language told us that our base payment rate was $1,600. Okay? That said that in the problem. We don't know the number of days per se, but we do have the ability to calculate that. Again, she was admitted on 10/2. She discharged on 10/7. So let's break out our fingers and let's work that out and see how many days she was actually in the hospital. Okay, so she was there on the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, but she discharged on the 7th, okay? We're not going to count the discharge date. So we've got the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. That's a total of 5 days of reimbursement. Okay, so we're going to take that 5 days and we're going to multiply it by our base payment rate, which our problem tells us was $1,600. All right, so I'm going to get my calculator out and I'm going to go 5 times 1,600. And I got $8,000. Okay, so I'm going to plug that $8,000 number in as my allowable. Again, because that base payment rate times number of days is how we're going to calculate the allowable here. All right, so here's my paper right now. I've even got it written out to the side over here that 5 days times $1,600, that's $8,000. Notice it's in the allowable spot. And we have total charges. Again, when you have that blank here, we can always solve for the unknown. So what would we have to subtract from $8,473.80 to get $8,000? Well, the answer to that is pretty simple because we're dealing with an even number. So we would subtract $473.80. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, y'all see that? All right, and that $473.80 is our contractual adjustment. All right, you with me so far? Because so far we have calculated the allowable, which allowed us to calculate the contractual adjustment. Now, according to this problem, she has a deductible of $500. Okay, Sue has a deductible, an inpatient deductible of $500. Now, and I haven't read this part of the problem yet, but I was getting to it. She had a $500 deductible, but she has met $175 of it. So we can't charge her for that $175 again. So what I'm going to do, on the scratch paper, is I'm going to take her total $500 deductible, okay, and I'm going to subtract the $175 deductible that she's met. All right, and if you do that math, 500 minus 175, that tells me she has $325 worth of deductible that she still has to meet. All right, so that $325 is what we're going to plug into our math problem. So in our deductible spot, let's write $325, and we're going to subtract that from the $8,000. 8,000 minus 325 is $76.75. Okay, again, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I do that sometimes. Notice, here's our $8,000 allowable. Notice how I'm just plugging it in next to my formula because that makes it so much easier. We figured over here she had a $500 deductible, of which she had met $175, leaving us a balance on her deductible of $325. So I'm going to plug that $325 in here on the deductible. When you do that subtraction, you get your subtotal, which is $7,675. Okay, now let's assume that the patient has a 10% coinsurance. 10%. 10% of what? The subtotal. So we're going to take the $76.75 subtotal and we're going to multiply it by 10%. And I'm going to do that right now, and I get $767.50. Again, I'm plugging that into my coinsurance spot on my paper. Notice how I took the 10% and multiplied it by 7675 to get the 767.50, and then I'm going to subtract to get my estimated insurance payment. So 7675 minus 767.50 is 6907.50. And that is my estimated insurance payment. Okay? This is a relatively simple method of reimbursement. What trips people up here is that they have trouble calculating the number of days. Okay? Again, it's important to remember, and I can't say this enough, count your admit date, but do not count your discharge date. I will also give you this tip. Be careful, you hear me? Be careful. On those months, like say you admitted on the 28th and you stayed until the 5th, it really depends on what month you're talking about, because some days, some months have 30 days, some months have 31. So you really need to remember what months have how many days. You know, I always use the 30 days has September, April, June, and November. Miss Heather always laughs at me because she thinks that's insane that I say that little rhyme in my head, and she does the whole knuckle thing. If it's a big knuckle, it's 31 days, and if it's in the valley, it's 30. Anywho, whatever method you use to determine how many days are in a month, you need to be aware of that sometimes that is going to make a difference, because some months are going to be longer than others, and it could cause you to miss a day of counting on your per diem. Okay, again, per diem means per day. That means we are getting reimbursed a flat rate for every day the patient is admitted. Also, again, broken record, broken record, broken record. Make sure you do not count that discharge date. Count the admit, don't count the discharge. Alrighty. I can't think of really anything else to say on this one because, again, it is a relatively simple method of reimbursement. I have attached my scratch paper along with the sample problem we just worked in Blackboard, as well as some practice exercises. Again, really important that you do that because that's the only input I'm getting on whether or not you have an understanding. As always, if you have problems or questions about this, please give me a call, send me a text, something. Let's stay in contact so I can know that you guys are getting it. You know, the last thing I want you to do is suffer because we're not doing this in class. So I guess I will see you next time for our next method of reimbursement, which will be the DRG. And again, holler at me if you need anything. Thanks. Have a good day.